Good morning, Mike and Arlen, our Philippine journey. Thanks so much for joining us. You know, this is another one of those videos I've had to shoot more than once. It just got too complicated to put as much into it as we needed, and it left too many open statements. So I thought I would try and simplify it a little bit more. Um, can she, if you live with your Filipina, all right, if you live with a Philippine woman, do you have to enter into a position, the requirements of a common law marriage before she's entitled to half of whatever you acquire? You're going to be surprised, but we're going to show you also a couple of ways to, I don't know, I guess protect yourself is the best word. Let's talk about it.
I never got it, why'd you have to go? I guess this world's too slow for you. I think there's beauty in the gray, the cold, but you just want the gold. And there's no way I can beat it, cause I got no chance, no chance when it comes to her. She got the glitter and the fame, and I just wasn't enough.
All right. You know what? Two disclaimers that I got to put out there. First off, we are not attorneys, okay? We are not giving you legal advice. We're just showing you the law as we find it. And quite frankly, with the way the Philippines works amendments and everything else, sometimes we can be wrong. Our advice is if you find yourself questioning this because you have a need, you get good, solid legal advice. Number two, hey, you know what? We would really appreciate it if you would subscribe and hit that thumbs up. That's the best way that you can support the efforts that we put forward. We just would appreciate it. I can't say it any more than that. All right. Cohabitation, living together, and common law marriage. They're all intertwined, but there are some ugly parts to them. Now, there are going to be a lot of guys that aren't going to like what we've got to say about this. And we apologize in advance only to the smallest degree of saying, this is the law as we have found it. This is the law as it is written, and it's up to you to get the best legal advice. Now, the Philippines Supreme Court has ruled that common law marriage has rights. Now, this is not as much about common law marriage as it is about living together. But something that you should keep in mind, the rights of a common law marriage are not the same rights, nor are they equal to a full marriage. Number two, more important than anything is that they have to be in both living together, considered to be living together, and a common law marriage. Both parties have to be able to enter into that. In other words, if you live with a woman and she has a previous marriage and it has not been annulled or has not been dissolved or voided by any means, okay, then you can't be considered living together and you can't be considered common law marriage. All right. Now, common law marriage, when does it take place? All right. The latest amendments that we have found show that 7 years is the absolute maximum you need for common law. We looked up some case law and we have seen where common law marriages have been observed at the 3-year period. So perhaps, and this is because These types of laws fall under the civil codes and not the criminal codes. So there's apparently some leeway here and there, and the courts have some leeway. But either way, it takes whatever time it takes. But we're not going to talk about common law marriage and division of property. We're going to talk about living together. So when two people live together, the Philippines does recognize that they have co-ownership of their endeavors. And there's a reason behind that. There's a reason that the Philippines sits there and says, hey, you know what? It takes two and the effort of two in that union, if you want to call it that. And this is the way it is. Now, again, these rights are limited. Why do people even get or find themselves in a position where they get a letter of agreement of cohabitation? Okay? Just like you would get a letter of separation, you can also get a letter of cohabitation, which has very little legal standing in the criminal courts. But in the civil courts, a letter of cohabitation does. But you don't even have to have that letter of cohabitation to be considered living together. The reason people get a letter of cohabitation is because they clearly want to define what happens to assets acquired during the time that people are cohabitating. Now, I think it's interesting that you should take a look at this. When a man and woman who are capacitated to marry, that means when they're capable of marrying each other, live exclusively with each other as husband and wife, without the benefits of marriage, which means they live together without being married under a void marriage, which means that they could be already an annulled marriage. Their wages and salaries shall be owned by them in equal shares, and the property acquired by both of them through their work or industry shall be governed by rules on co-ownership. That's pretty straightforward. Okay? There's not much messing around with that. So, what is the time limitation? The statute doesn't say. Why put yourself at risk? We told you that they're going to be in this position. You could meet a woman, ask her to move in, and in 90 days, you're living together. Or perhaps the court will say it takes a year. Who knows? I don't want to have to spend the money, and you don't want to have to spend the money to find out what the court is going to say to question certain things. Now, you know you're not going to co-own property. And when I mean, and this is a very convoluted thing, you actually can co-own the rights to the disposition of land, okay? But you can't own the land. And this is a convoluted wicket. A lot of people will agree or disagree. One day we'll do a video on that. But what about condos? What about cars? What about scooters? If you acquire those things while you're living together, she is entitled to own half, whether her name is on the title or not. Now, there are some things to keep in mind, obviously. This is a civil matter, which means it's a matter that she would have to pursue. It's a matter that she would have to get an attorney. It's a matter that she would have to file. So your first line of defense is simply she's not going to have the money to do it. The second line of defense is to have an agreement in place, one that's drawn up by an attorney, one that's going to be binding, one that's going to be in her language and yours, okay, that says, I'm acquiring this piece of property at this point in time, at this address, and I'm acquiring it of my own sole funds, and it is not part of any co-ownership with, I don't know, Susie or whoever. Okay? That's your second line of defense. Now, will this work all the time? I don't know. I know that we've seen in case law where it did, and we haven't seen where it didn't. But there's a ton of law out there, a ton of local jurisdictional stuff that never makes it into the Philippine Law Library. So, we go back to what we said before. Get a good attorney. Okay? So, I see a lot of guys that come out here. They've been in a long distance relationship. You know what, honey? I'm coming over in 2 months. Gonna get you. We're gonna look for a place. I'm gonna buy a condo. We're gonna be set and live happily ever after. Well, if you're living together, whatever you acquire, even if you use funds from your country, it could be half hers. I don't know how else to state it. That's just the way the law is written. How it is enforced, how it is done, that's a totally different story and something that we can't give you an answer to. And that's why we say, go get a good attorney on these things. The other thing that we would say, and we've told you this before, never put a dime into the Philippines that you can't just walk away from. If you can't afford to walk away from it, rent. Okay? You can rent scooters. You can rent condos. You can rent whatever. It's not the best financial move all the time, but then again, real estate here doesn't work like it works in the U.S. or as well as it works in the U.S. You can't, something is not worth something until you sell it. So return on investment for real estate is a very tricky subject. I hope that this has been informative. I hope you've gotten an idea of some of the pitfalls of living together and some of the ways to make your journey a little safer. And then finally, some of the ways to make you think, consider, engage, and then seek the professional help. Recognize there's a problem, and then recognize you need to find a viable solution. All right. Got a lot to do this morning. I have a meeting after breakfast. So we really thank you for stopping in. We hope you're having a great day, and we hope you have a great day. Thanks.